Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks again so much for joining. I am appreciating all of the love, all of the support. And I am so glad, again, as I always say, I'm so glad that I'm able to bring you guys things that you can actually use, learn from, and enjoy listening to and watch. Today, we're going to talk about lab and pathology in regards to the CPC exam. And a lot of times, I've been having, probably like the last 2 or 3 months, I've been having lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of emails about people scoring low on the lab and path portion of the CPC. Now, once again, like I always say, coding in the classroom and coding on the exam is so much different than coding in real life. So in this video, I'll show you how to use your CPT index. It's very important that you know how to use your index because you will not have multiple choice on the job. So are you ready? Let's get into it. So pathology and laboratory procedures CPT code range from 80047 through 89398. This code range includes pathology procedure codes and CPT codes for lab tests. The American Medical Association, which is the AMA, maintains the CPT code set. So all of the CPT codes used by a lab include services used to evaluate specimens obtained from a patient sample. So anytime the patient gives a sample, then the codes that are used by the lab is going to include the evaluations of the specimens obtained from this patient. In other words, lab run labs. And that's what they bill for. The lab runs the test for the doctor. That's ordered. You know how you go to the doctor, and sometimes they have to send it out to like LabCorp, Quest. I'm sure you've heard of those things like that. A lot of those tests are not run in the office. They're sent out. So the lab runs the test for the doctor. They ordered them. Once the tests are done, the lab gives the results to the doctor. The doctor then uses these to assist in medical decision making. So once the doctor gets the lab results back from LabCorp or back from Quest or back from whatever services that they use, then that's going to decide how they're going to treat the patient according to what the results are. Lab samples are usually prepared and screened by qualified lab personnel with a pathologist who assumes the risk of interpretation. Just like when you go and get an x-ray or something like that, the x-ray technician may give you the x-ray exam, but there's going to be a physician, an actual medical doctor, a radiologist, who's going to read or interpret the results. Same here. A pathologist is the one who assumes the risk, assumes the risk of interpretation. This means that the majority of the people who actually work in a lab and run the test are lab technicians who run the lab samples. Here's a little list of pathology and laboratory subsections. You see here I listed, it's going to be, kind of important and kind of know, especially when you're taking your CPC exam. And that's where I got messed up at the first time when I failed it, because I did not familiarize myself with the book. I just figured, oh, okay, I can use the book for my exam. How hard can this be when it's open book test? But if you don't familiarize yourself with your book, then most of your time is going to be spent flipping around through the book, even with tabs. Most of the time, your time is going to be spent flipping around through the books to kind of find what you need if you're not familiar with it. So I wanted to just run through these here so you kind of familiarize yourself. You can take a screenshot or whatever you need. It's up here for a while. You can kind of write it down or play it over. Play it over. Oh, I didn't say it at the beginning. Yes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, so organ and tissue panels, code section or code range for this, drug testing, therapeutic drug assays, evocative suppression testing, consultations, clinical pathology, urinalysis, chemistry, hematology and coagulation, immunology, transfusion medicine, microbiology, anatomic pathology. I'm trying to give you guys time to kind of write it down. You can flip through your books. You know, you can kind of compare cytopathology, cytogenic studies, surgical pathology, transcutaneous procedures, other procedures, and reproductive medicine procedures. Okay, so let's get into it. So I've listed 5 questions here. It's going to be a quick review, but I've listed 5 questions, and along with these questions, I've listed the answer and the specific page where you can find the answer. I have a lot of little books and apps and all the little resources and stuff like that to kind of help me like find page numbers, you know, things to help me find the answers and all of this. So let's get into it. Number 1, a patient goes to a private lab to have the motility of his sperm tested. The lab uses the Hunter test method. How would this be billed? So we have multiple choice. We have 89398. We have 89310. We have 89300 and 89320. So the answer is going to be C, 89300. So let's see why this is the answer. So if you have your book, you can actually kind of follow along, and it'll also help you with your index and help you get good at indexing to find the answers. In the index of the CPT book, you will find that the Hunter test, semen analysis. This gives you the code 89300 and 89320. So it gives you two codes, And that's a lot with CPT codes. They are very detailed and you have to pay attention. It can be one word that changes the whole description of the procedure. So make sure you pay attention with your CPT codes. And the CPC exam is mainly CPT codes. So you're going to find these 2 codes when you look up the Hunter test, the semen analysis, and this gives you these 2 codes, and which can be found in the Path and Lab section of the CPT book. The difference between the 2 codes is what the analysis is testing exactly. In the case of the question, the Hunter test is testing the mobility. So this will be the correct answer. 89300 is only testing the mobility, the motility. And I'll tell you why the other answers are wrong. So code 89310 is for semen analysis as well, but it's not for this specific method. 89320 is also for semen analysis. It's using this method. I see a typo. I'm glad I still have it up. So it's using the same method. However, this tests the volume, the count motility, and the differential. And this question states only motility was tested. So this will be the incorrect answer. 89398. This is for unlisted reproductive medicine lab procedure. And the Hunter method is a listed procedure, so this would be incorrect. So when you use this 89398, which is for unlisted reproductive medicine lab procedure, that's going to be for any procedure that is not listed in the CPT code. And there's rarely procedures, because that, you see how thick that book is. It kind of pretty much covers almost everything. And just in case it doesn't, every system or every category, every series has an unlisted code that you can use. So for reproductive, the 89398 is if you have a procedure that is not listed in the book. So the Hunter method is a listed procedure, so this would be incorrect. And you can find this on page 626 in the CPT Professional Book 2020 edition. Number 2, if a microbiologist is looking for HIV-1 antigens and HIV-1 and 2 antibodies via antigen detection by immunoassay with direct observation, how would this be billed? So we have A, 87802, we have 87901, we have 87900, and we have 87806, which is the answer. And this is why. In the CPT book, look up infectious agent, immunoassay with direct optical observation HIV-1. This is how you're going to look it up in your index. You're going to see what they're asking you. You're going to look it up by infectious agent because HIV is an infectious agent. This gives you the code 87806, which can be found in the Path and Lab section. And turning into this section, you'll see the code is for infectious agent antigen detection by immunoassay with direct optical observation, HIV-1 antigens with HIV-1 and HIV-2 antibodies. Since this is what the question is asking for exactly, this code will be the correct answer. Code 8702, and again, I'm going to even giving you the reasons why these other options are not the answer. So code 87802 is also for infectious agent antigen detection, but it's for strep, group B. And since the question is looking for HIV antigen and antibodies, this is incorrect. 87901 is for infectious agent genotype analysis by DNA or RNA, HIV-1. This is not what the question is asking for, so this will be also incorrect. 87900 is for infectious agent drug susceptibility, phenotype prediction using regularly updated genotype bioinformatics. Again, this is not what the question is asking for, so it's wrong. And you can find this in the 2020 edition of the AMA CPT book, the professional version, page 615. Question 3. After acquiring her first job, Lisa learns that she must go through a presumptive drug screening via urine dipstick. Her employer wants her to be tested for the following: barbiturates, cocaine, methadone, and opiates. How would her local lab or the place where she was tested at bill this? You see, we have 80305, 80307, and then for C, we have an array of options. And for D, we have an array of options as well. Okay, so in the index book, you will see drug assay. You'll look up drug assay, presumptive drug class, which gives you the code range 80305 and through 80307. And then when you turn into the Path and Lab section, you'll see that the difference between the codes is how the sample is read. In the question, the patient has a urine dipstick to test for these substances, which can be read by direct optical observation, which means pretty much looking at it, and does not need assistance from anything else. So this leaves us with code 80305, which is for a presumptive test. Any number of devices or procedures capable of being read by direct optical observation only. Looking at it, optical, your eyes, medical terminology. Since this matches what the question is asking for, this will be the correct answer. Again, I'm gonna give you guys the reason why it's not the answer. So codes 80345 and 80353, 80358 and 80361 are for testing barbiturates, cocaine, methadone, and opiates respectively, meaning this is what we're asking for. But since you cannot bill for testing these substances separately, this will not be the correct code. Code 80306 is for a presumptive drug test, read by instrument-assisted direct optical observation. Since you know that no other means were necessary because it said no assistance, when it came to getting results from the urine dipstick, this is incorrect. Code 80307 is for a presumptive drug screen as well, but by using instrument chemistry analyzers, chromatography, and mass spectrometry, either with or without chromatography. This code is too detailed for what the question is asking, so this would also be incorrect. And you can look in your AMA 2020 CPT Professional book, page 546. Number 4. After a patient is diagnosed with NSTEMI, the physician on call in the ER orders the following tests immediately: myoglobin, quantitative troponin, and CK. Now, it's good to know your medical terminology because CK is creatine kinase. He wants these tests to be run once an hour, every 3 hours. How would this be billed? I wanted to throw in a question with a lot of busy stuff going on, so you can kind of get the gist of, kind of what it is, or, what you need to be looking for, or how you can answer this question in case you see it on an exam, or if you see it in your everyday coding life at work. So remember, we want to use the index because there's no alphabetical multiple options in real life. And it'll also help you on the exam where you can go kind of directly to the answer. In the index of the CPT book, you're going to first, and I see a typo here. I'm looking at it with you guys for the first time if I put it together. So in the index of the CPT book, you will first look up the code for myoglobin. This code is given, the code is given as 83874, and this can be found in the Path and Lab section, of course. 83874 is indeed for myoglobin, so this will be the correct answer. Next, you'll turn back to the index and look up troponin, quantitative, which gives you 84484. And then you're going to turn back to the Path and Lab section, and you will see that 84484 is for quantitative troponin. So this would be the correct answer for the question. Then last, look up creatine kinase total, which gives you the code 82550. So we got our codes. We got 83874, we got 84484, and we got 82550. And as you can see, that's C. So when you look up the 82550, and you're going to see it's the creatine total, once you have all 3 codes figured out, then you will notice that the doctor ran the test once an hour for every 3 hours. I want you to I'm giving you a chance to get the screenshot, write down. So since this is a repeat test, you have to use a modifier 91. And that modifier means repeat clinical diagnostic lab test. That's why it's very important. I'll do a video next about modifiers. And that's why it's going to be very, 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 very important to know your modifiers and know when to use them. Because if you leave the modifier off of this claim, then it can be denied. And if it's denied, then it means the doctor or the lab or whoever performed the services will not get paid. And that's your job, You have to know what you're doing. So this is a field that you have to constantly do research, constantly read, network, join groups, look at YouTube videos to kind of gather all of the information that you can. So the modifier 91 is for the repeat clinical diagnostic lab test. And on the second code for each, and you're going to use that for the second code for each. And since the test was run 3 times, you will build the code with the modifier 91 on it twice. So I'll show you. You see how you have 83874, and then you have the 83874 91 times 2. That means they ran this test 2 times, and the one alone mean, this the additional time, which makes it 3. You see here I have the 84484. Then I have it again with the modifier 91, showing that it's repeat because it's every 3 hours. And then this is going to be twice. Twice plus 1, 3. And the same for the last code. You will not use the ×3 on any of the codes for this question because the modifier, and see the modifier 91, it lets them know that it's repeat. So you're not going to put a ×3. You're going to use the first code, then you're going to second code, and how many times with the modifier plus how many times. And modifier 51 for multiple procedures would not be used. Sometimes people probably would get it confused and think, oh, it's a multiple procedure because they're getting multiple sticks every other hour. This will not be considered a procedure, but it will be considered a diagnostic, a repeat clinical diagnostic lab test. You see how specific things are? And you can find this in your AMA 20 professional book, pages 591, 595, and 598. So we're coming up on the last question. I hope you're enjoying this lab and path video. I don't see a lot of lab and path videos on here. It is a headache type of subject. It will give you a headache, all the stuff you have to know about lab and path. Okay, number 5. If a physician would like a patient to be tested for an autism spectrum disorder, how would the lab build the test out? See your options here, 81404, and then you have 81404 and 81405. You have 81401, and then you have the 81405. So it's going to be B, 81404, 81405, and let me tell you why and why not. So, the molecular pathology gene table, there's a molecular pathology gene table in your CPC book in the Path and Lab section. This book lists different genes and gene groups and how they can be built. This will be the best way to check out the answer to this question, along with matching the codes found in the table to the codes in the actual section. The gene for autism spectrum disorder, or the genes NLG-N3 or NLG-N4X, according to the table, can be built using the following codes: 81404 and 81405, which is verified when looking them up in the Tier 2 molecular pathology procedure subsection. Now, code 81401, according to the Tier 2 table, the molecular pathology procedure subsection, and the gene table, it's not the correct answer. And this can be found in the AMA 2020 CPT Professional book, page 572 through 577. So this is the end of the lab and path presentation. I'll go back to this, let you screenshot this, and this will help out a lot. So thank you so much for joining the presentation. Please drop your comments down below. If you have any questions about this video, I'll be glad to answer your questions. If you would like to drop your questions or your suggestions about any other videos, I'm always open to suggestions because this channel is for you to help you along your coding journey, whether you're in class or whether you're coding in real life. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much for joining the Coding Coach again.